the session. We're already running a little bit late. So this is about the consultation session on IANA stewardship transition. And we have Masato Yamanashi as the moderator of the session. I'll invite Masato to the stage to begin the consultation. Now I'd like to invite our APNIC EC chair, Maimura Kinori, to introduce the consultation session and begin with the proceedings. Thank you.
Okay. Please get prepared. Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Maimura Kinori, the chair of the Executive Council of APNIC. And here we are gathering for the discussion of the IANA stewardship transition, and then the IP address community asked by the IANA stewardship transition coordination group, ICG, to develop the IP address community's perspective on IANA stewardship transition. I will have the today in this session we will have the Masato Yamanishi, who has been serving as the chair of the policy SIG and co-chair of the policy SIG. Then he's from community, and he is really good at moderating the discussion. Then to have this discussion fully of the community, we ask him to serve the moderator for this session for the committee to discuss. And then we will have Paul Wilson, our Director General, and also a member of the ICG, and to explain the facts and the background for this IANA stewardship transition. Then Paul, please come up to us, and then have some explanation. And myself will follow Paul Wilson's explanation to explain the proposal. That's a Strawman proposal, which has been shared with you through the APNIC blogs for 2 or 3 weeks, I think. Oh, 2 weeks. Anyway, then to explain what the proposal is, which will be the basis on the consideration of views. Then, Paul, you will have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Akinori. Good morning, everyone. This process has got quite a lot of background to it. There's quite a lot of sort of assumed knowledge that some of you may have or not have in this room. So I'd like to give a few points about the background. It won't be completely comprehensive because I think many of us do know where we are these days. But I want to fill in gaps, and of course, during the discussion, if anything's not clear, then let's come back to these slides or discuss any questions that you might have. But let me just start with the background, and if I can, oh dear. I need a training lesson in how to use this thing, I'm afraid. It's a little slow, okay. The keyboard. Apologies, everyone. Okay. Now this process is about IANA. IANA is the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, and it's always operated as a sort of office coordinating these set of registries that are required for Internet's operation. IANA's always operated more or less under US government stewardship over the decades, since the beginning. And in the early years, there were a series of changes that were made in terms of who was operating IANA and what the arrangements were. We're not talking about the early history here. We're talking about the history really that started in 1999, because after a lot of deliberation about how IANA operates and under whose control, the USG established ICANN, and its aim at the time was, in brief, to privatise the stewardship of IANA. That's what ICANN was actually designed to do from the start. Now, the word privatise was used at the time. It predates this idea of a multi-stakeholder model. But in fact, that's the approach that ICANN took, because ICANN involved the technical communities, the names and the numbers and the protocols, but it also involved governments, and it involved what they called the at-large membership, the internet users at large. So ICANN did actually implement a multi-stakeholder model, because those groups are all different stakeholder groups. And it did that from the start. And it operated since then, since 1999, with this expectation that it would ultimately take full stewardship of IANA. But that's only become a reality or a possibility recently, because through that entire period, through the last 15 years, ICANN has maintained a contract with the USG, US government, to operate IANA. So that contract has been going for 15 years. It's been renewed and modified a few times. But finally, in March of this year, the USG announced that they were prepared to transfer the stewardship of IANA to the internet community, basically to allow the contract with ICANN to come to an end, and to allow IANA to operate, I suppose, independently under the stewardship of the community in general. So I think one point about this is that the timing may have been a bit of a surprise, but the fact of that announcement was no surprise. It's in fact what we've been waiting for, expecting. It's what we've been calling for, actually, for much of the last 15 years. So just put very simply, ICANN is illustrated here on the left and the US government on the right. There's a contract between them, but the operation of IANA within ICANN. So ICANN is effectively contracted to carry out these functions. The dotted line there indicates just something that's quite important that doesn't affect us directly, and that's the fact that the US government, the only operational step or process that they're involved with at all is in technically approving the root zone updates that happen to the DNS root zone. Now, IANA, as I mentioned, is a collection of registries. There are actually hundreds or many hundreds of registries within IANA, and they're sort of grouped under three different general communities of interest. So in the numbers space, we've got essentially three registries that we care about for IPv4, IPv6, and autonomous system numbers. In the protocol parameters area, there are hundreds of registries for different protocols, for the parameters for different protocols. And they sit under the stewardship, I suppose, or with accountability to the IETF. And the third part is the names side, which actually really has one registry of interest, which is the root zone registry, and it sort of almost uniquely corresponds with this thing called the root zone file. And that's in red there because it is a kind of a hot issue. The root zone file is directly part of the DNS infrastructure. If it goes away, then things get immediately very shaky, whereas, of course, other registries, being just lists, can sort of go away and the internet keeps operating. So if you want to know why names are a problem, or a challenge, I'll correct myself, then that's part of it. The point about this diagram is that the registries operate independently. And in fact, the fact that they are all in the one office of IANA is a kind of historical thing. They could be operated differently, they could be operated in different organisations, but historically and for administrative convenience, they're all in the one place. And the RIRs actually have been quite happy with that situation. and have stated that we're quite happy with the fact that IANA has this overarching responsibility for all of those registries. But the point is that the three, what we call operational communities, names, numbers and protocol parameters, are three separate communities with an interest in separate groups of registries. And this brings us to why the Internet, the IANA transition, the Stewardship Coordination Group has been happy to kind of refer the responsibility for planning to each of those three communities. But more on that in a minute. One thing that's important for us to understand here is that this is not about the policy process. It's about the implementation and the arrangements for IANA itself. So on the left-hand side of this diagram, we've got the RIRs, we've got the ASO, we've got the PDPs, we've got the fact that very cleanly the ASO channels policies into ICANN for implementation by IANA. It's a very clean, successful model. But that left-hand side of the diagram here is not in question in this current discussion. Now, some more background. There's a useful page on the NRO website which lists all of the different public statements and communications that the RIRs have made through the NRO in relation to these matters. And I'm putting this up here because, again, we've been expecting this transition for quite a long time. The RIRs, through our processes, have made a whole set of statements which talk about the way we have imagined it running. So again, this is not exactly new work. This is something we've been thinking about and talking about, and you would have, some of you will definitely have seen many of these statements that we've made. But we've made submissions to the US government about the operation of ICANN and the IANA. We have a public exchange of letters with ICANN that is about our mutual recognition sort of relationship. We have made submissions to ICANN. We published something called the Montevideo Statement just last year, which was also about the same topic. So if you'd like to look at the specifics of the statements made, as I say, there's a long history there. So the current situation, as I've said, the US government announced in March that it was prepared to transition, that is to allow the IANA contract to come to an end and to transition that stewardship responsibility to the Internet community. It asked ICANN to convene a process for creating the plan, and ICANN did that through a consultation in April and May, and of course the NRO contributed to that consultation process. And in June, ICANN announced the creation of this thing, the ICG, and that's the group of ICANN community representatives, which is tasked with producing this transition plan. That's the plan that's implemented when the IANA contract expires in 2015. So that's underway now. On the 9th of September, we released an RFP. Now, as I alluded to before, the request for proposals goes to each of the three operational communities to actually specify their expectations for how the IANA arrangements will be conducted after 2015. It's also a completely open process, so it's available for anyone to read, to comment on, to respond, and the ICG will be doing its best to take everything into account and to produce a final plan which will go to the US government by about June next year, so that they can make their process, they can make their decisions by September. So that's some background, and as I say, I'm sorry if some of you know this well already. If any of it's not clear, we can come back to this during the discussion, but it's the background to the proposal that Akinori is going to talk about now. Thank you.
All right. I will continue some explanation, and then if you had any questions in the Paul's part and my part, then you can please don't hesitate, but feel free to go in front of the microphone and make a question, and then we will come up again to answer your question. All right. I will explain the draft proposal. Then our year's consultation process. The IP address part of the proposal is asked to consider to the RIRs. Then RIR, beginning with the APNIC conference here today, all RIR will have their own meetings from September to November timeframe. Then this autumn RIR meeting series, each RIR consider their own position for the IANA stewardship transition, and then ending with APNIC at the end of the November. Then all RILs had such a process, and then NIO, Number Resource Organization, as the collective RILs, will work on consolidate the regional consultations. Then ICG, the coordination group, already submitted call for proposal with the deadline of the submission on January 15th, 2015. Then NRO will submit by this deadline with the IP address committee's input to the ICG. Then ICG will do the further process. Then the ICG's target to submit the final proposal to the U.S. government is set in June 2015. That's what I said is quite well illustrated in this slide. Please look at it. Then, as the IP address community, we had some discussion to develop this proposal in front of you, to present it in front of you. We think we have the possible issues to consider. They are listed here. ICANN, current operator of the IANA function, should be ongoing or not, and then operational security of the IANA functions. How should it be? Secured? And then policy compliance by IANA. How should it be? Should be retained? And then whether we should have IANA oversight mechanisms or not, or if any, it is what kind of shape. And ICANN's accountability to operate the IANA function to the RIR communities. What kind of accountability should be equipped there? And finally, agreements between ICANN and the RIRs and NRO. So this table is actually simple enough. But the current proposal from the APNIC. By the way, this proposal is compiled by the APNIC Secretariat, and then for your consideration. And I am as the chair of the Executive Council. That means that in the between of the committee, your committee, it's yours. It's you and the Secretariat. That is the reason why I am now explaining of this Secretariat's proposal. This is the whole of the draft proposal. Then we have the 3 points. The first point is the USG to terminate the IANA contract on September 30th, 2015. This is actually the expiry date of the current IANA contract between ICANN and the U.S. government. Then my first point is the first point to be proposed is we'd like to have this contract terminated as the expiry of the current contract. The second part, this is the first principle, which is technical stability and continuity. We definitely need the stability and the continuity with the IANA function because the regional internet registry serve with the IP number resources to the RIS members and the broader community with that resource which is provided by the IANA. If this provision of the resource and the management service go unstable or not to continue, then we, RIL, have a big problem to serve you. Then therefore the entire internet community will be suffering from the problem with the lack of the provision and lack of the management of our number resource. That is the first point of the principle. The second point is the transparency, consistency, and the completeness of in all agreements. So this provide us to this provide us the confidence on the ICANN as process. This proposal like to have the ICANN as continuously the operator of the IANA, but anyway, the transparency, consistency, and the completeness in all agreement will provide us the confidence onto the ICANN or as the IANA operator to deal with, and then to put the trust in their operation of the IANA function. Then under these two principles, we have some concreteness of the transition plan. For the technical stability and continuity, the transition plan should be in this draft proposal that ICANN to continue as the operator of IANA. If yes, we can. It is possible for us to consider a different organization to run the IANA function, but I can fulfill the operator's position for 15 years, and then they are obviously at the best position to run the IANA function. Then if we think of the change of the operator of the IANA, then we need to have the huge amount of the additional provision to make sure that another entity to run the IANA function. Then the second point is the NRO as the collective RIRs to enter into a service level agreement, SLA, with ICANN as the IANA function operator. The service level agreement, which is assure the service quality of the IANA function, then that should be clarified again. That's the point. For the principle of the transparency, consistency, and completeness in all agreements, we have the 2 points under that. NRO to review current agreements with ICANN, and NRO to enter into an affirmation of commitments with ICANN. For the clarification, affirmation of commitments is with one term which is also used to the ICANN, the agreement between ICANN and the U.S. government to provide the ICANN's and the U.S. government's commitments to affirm. But in this case, this affirmation of commitments represent the newly established, the enforced agreement which provide the commitments from both sides. So this is the entire proposal, which a draft proposal, which was compiled by the APNIC Secretariat with the association with ORIRs for you to consider. I guess that many of you might think this is really simple. Then, but I think I like this proposal, and this is simple enough, but this is quite sufficient because someone may think that such a accountability and the oversight function to the IANA operation need to have the more rich or sophisticated process and scheme to fulfill. But the IP address management is largely done by the 5 RIRs with the cooperation with the IANA function as the manager of the origin of the number of resources. And then that kind of the accountability and the assurance of the operation, sustainable operation, is possible to be fulfilled by the agreement as those who accept the IANA service, IANA function service by the ICANN as the IANA function operator to us. Then there is actually, in my view, this is sufficient for retain the accountability at the IANA function in terms of the IP address management. So in this proposal, I think you might have some questions. What is the current agreement, or what does the SLA between ICANN and NRO mean, or what is an aforementioned commitments? Then I did my job to explain you about, as far as I can, but I think I'd like to invite Craig Ngu, the General Counsel of the APNIC, to have the much more crystal clear explanation on this provision. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. I'm not sure about crystal clear, but it'll be clearer than mud. I suppose I want to put some context behind the contractual framework. So we, as lawyers, look at contracts and why we need a contract. The numbering community runs pretty independently of ICANN, I think. But we need ICANN for a couple of things. We need IANA to allocate the numbers to us in the first place. And we need ICANN to implement our global policies. So in terms of independence, those are kind of two main functions that they do. The three agreements, and we as a RIR community work collectively through the NRO, the Number Resources Organization. The three agreement, if you like, that currently exists between NRO and ICANN is pretty lightweight. And it's lightweight because it assumes that there is a contract between ICANN and US government that actually deals with a lot of the nitty-gritty of provision of numbers and things like that. So we, in the numbering community, are piggybacking on the contract that exists between US government and ICANN. So what we need to do is actually look at what the gaps are. So the current three agreement, if you look up in there, the MOU that's signed in 2004 really just says that the NRO-NC will perform the role of ASO. So ICANN, as you know, has GNSO, CCNSO, ASO. The ASO function in ICANN is performed by the NRO-NC. And the 2004 MOU simply really establishes the ASO and the provision of the function by NRO-NC. It also deals with how global policies are developed. So a very, very small part of what we do and our interaction with ICANN. In 2007, there was an exchange of letters, and there's a good reason why it's an exchange of letters. I think people maybe don't trust each other completely. There were a lot of issues that we really wanted to put into agreement that didn't make that agreement. So the agreement, the exchange of letters was again very lightweight. It really just was very softly talking about we support each other's activities and we commit to each other's relationship. It's kind of like not even an engagement or a wedding. It's a very softly agreement. And the 2009 exchange of letters simply is like a renewal of vows. It simply says, okay, we kind of like what 2007 and we'll continue what we had in 2007. So the reason we're here today is that if and when the US government exits and there is a gap in the contract between the US government and ICANN, then how do we continue to make ourselves comfortable and assured that we will continue to receive the services and to continue to have the relationship with ICANN that we currently enjoy? So what's missing in that 3 agreement or MOU that currently exists is what we are trying to put in and fill the gaps via the affirmation of commitments and via the service level agreement. So in the service level agreement, what we are looking for is a commitment, as a mutual commitment to the recognition of each other's role. This is what we do, this is what you do. It's well documented, we all know what that is, but it's a written on paper that we commit to each other's role. We commit both to the multi-stakeholder model, because at the moment that's just set. It's not in actually any agreement between us two. We commit to acting in the best interest of the internet community. We both commit to good governance, good transparency, and good accountability to our constituency and our stakeholders. And we commit to, and ICANN gives us a commitment to continue to perform the IANA services, assuming that that's the entity that we want to provide the services. And then we have in the service level agreement is really the sort of nuts and bolts about what are the specific services that are to be delivered, how the numbers are to be allocated, timeline, time frame. So very, very detailed, just like a SLA that you see in a technology contract, for example. So really that's what I wanted to talk about. The message really is that in the past, we have a US contract that is kind of helping us to fill the gaps between the arrangements we currently have. In the absence of that, we need to fill the gap, and we fill that gap by, or we're proposing to fill that gap by the affirmation of commitment and SLA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig. Then that's all for the explanation part. And then based on them, I'd like to pass the floor to the Masato to the moderator community discussion. Thank you very much, Masato.
Thank you very much for inviting me as moderator. Before starting discussion, let me explain my intention of this session, because I'm the person who challenged the current APNIC outreach activity in last meeting. So some people may feel it's a little bit strange that I'm doing moderator of this session. But in my understanding, as Paul already explained, IANA stewardship transition has 3. So dance? You do. No, I cannot. Yeah. Right now we have transcript issue. Anyway, you know, this time we only have one transcriptor in here, but we have another transcriptor in APNIC office, and she's working remotely. What? We were asked, resume my comment exactly from what we stopped. But I cannot remember which part. Anyway, so as Paul explained, IANA stewardship transition has 3 perspectives. I started from correct part. Anyway, so then one of them is a number part, and APNIC, which is RIL, is direct. Not only APNIC, but also other RILs are direct stakeholder for that part. So we should discuss what we can handle this issue inside our community, right? Then that is the reason why I accepted this moderator. And also, sorry, talking a little bit long, but I want to make sure the goal of this session, we have in my understanding, we have 2 goals of this session. First one is getting better understanding about this, about IANA stewardship transition in this community, right? And also another one is, of course, hearing your views or your comment about this proposal, right? But as I said, first goal is getting better understanding of this issue. So please don't hesitate to ask questions about background and also about this draft proposal itself, okay? So I'm gonna start question or discussion. Whatever you have, please come to microphone and ask your questions or say your comment about these things.
Sure. Good, man. Good speaking.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention one more point. As I said, we are number community, so I would like to focus this discussion to number part as much as possible, and also I know that we have many participants coming from outside this region, but please respect to participants coming from this region, because the goal of this session is healing from this region. Okay. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Despain, CEO of .au, and a member of the ICANN board. And I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to, respecting completely what you've just said about this is the numbers community and so on, I just wanted to make two very simple points. In the same way that APNIC needs to work closely with the other RIRs to come up with its number piece of what the bigger picture is going to be like, the CCTLD community and the GTLD community needs to work together to come up with the names piece, and the ITF presumably, or the IAB presumably just needs to work on its own, but within its own community to come up with its protocol parameter piece. The key, however, I think is to remember that all three, or possibly four, because actually the Gs and Cs will end up with slightly different needs from IANA, all four of those pieces actually need to be sewn together to make one piece. So it is incredibly important that whilst you're working on your numbers piece, you actually keep an eye on what's going on in the other places to make sure that there aren't any future train wrecks that may occur because the pieces actually aren't compatible. I just wanted to say one other thing, which is that I've heard in the last couple of days that I've been here that a number of people talking about, well, the worst case scenario would be that the numbers community will come to consensus about what it wants, and that will be fine, and that will happen, by September next year. And if that ends up happening on its own, that's okay. I very, very strongly doubt that the US government will agree to doing this piecemeal. They will only agree to doing this as one move, which means all of the pieces have to fit together, and therefore that makes it even more important for everyone to keep an eye on the bigger picture. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So, Dean?
Thank you. I'm Dean Pemberton, Internet NZ. I've got a number of notes, but I'll start from the top. The first point I had, I think, is kind of been covered by yourself and Chris. I just had a couple more comments. That if you bring up the draft proposal here,
sure.
I just want to get clarity around whether we're talking about just the numbers piece here, or whether we're talking about, the 3 or maybe 4 functions. So when we're talking about, the IANA function and all that, we're just focusing as the APNIC community on the numbers piece, right? Yeah, I'm seeing some nods. Awesome, good.
Right.
That's great. What I think as well is, is to acknowledge that we do have a good working relationship with IANA over a number of years, and we do enjoy the ability to, you know, more or less be the masters of our own policy destiny. We have the policy SIGs here. We decide how we're going to do all this sort of stuff. But that in other areas of the IANA function, that's perhaps not the case, and that it might actually be an option for the three parts to not look exactly the same. So while I take Chris's point about they absolutely need to be compatible, I don't know that they need to be identical. Yeah, good. This is all about establishing a shared understanding. And I would say that it could be a possibility for APNIC and the NRO to come out in support of the names community, so that they can have a similar sort of masters of their own destiny function as we enjoy, and that might be an option. My other points really go to accountability. Where's the accountability lie within this model? So we've got some language around agreements should specify, but I think this is such an important part.
One second.
Yep.
You mentioned about accountability.
Yes.
But accountability in which organization?
Sure.
And for
Okay.
what?
Okay. So accountability of IANA of the IANA function. So for instance, does IANA review and audit their own work, or is there independence in the review, accountability function, et cetera, et cetera? The language around agreements should specify. I think we need to talk a little bit more about that at this stage, rather than leaving it to the agreement stage. Where is the accountability for the function? How does that fit into this? The rest of it, I'll wait until we get a little bit more conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Regarding accountability, I want to make sure one point, right? As shown in this slide, currently, from number perspective, ASO has accountability for IANA function. No? Who has accountability? Come to microphone.
Sorry.
ICANN as the IANA function operator. It's accountable. It should be accountable. ASO is responsible for coordinating the discussion of the global policy, which is the policy for IANA function to the IP number service. That's the definition.
So you're talking about accountability for as operator, right? But we also have policy enforcer. Then policy enforcer is the ASO. I'm not saying my comment. I just make sure what you're talking. Sorry.
Can I comment about the accountability
okay,
issues?
Kenny, 1 second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because that is
go ahead.
a related one. I think the accountability actually is both sides, to be honest. I think, of course, I can have accountability for the number communities, of course. But at the same time, don't forget that the ASO or global policy of number policies, you have a similar accountability for the internet user globally. So I think the accountability is for both sides. We also have maybe we have a different target, but somehow we all have accountability issues. So accountability not only on the ICANN or on the IANA side. The ASO also need to have accountability to generate a good global policy to the user.
Okay, go ahead, Kenny.
Okay, thank you. Kenny Huang, Executive Council member of APNIC. First of all, thank you for ICP folks to making this kind of effort, make it happen. But I have two questions. The first question is, the effort we try to make either is SRA or AOC. Sorry, I'm not a legal guy. And from my observation, that kind of effort to strengthen the relationship, either right or application between ICANN and NRO. But from my observation is that kind of effort can be exercised from time to time with or without IANA transition. So I didn't figure out what kind of relation between that kind of effort and the relation between U.S. government and IANA. So what's the implication after we're doing this? That's the first question. The second question is, although we proposed the proposal as a consensus from the community, but things probably didn't work out as we anticipate. And do we need a plan B just in case to run another exercise in the next year? Okay, thank you.
Okay, do you have any, does somebody can answer for first Kenny's question? Nobody? Is that an open question?
Dean Pemberton said, hopefully we don't need a plan B because we're going to get plan A right. You know. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll answer the accountability. I think and this is Dean's question about accountability. I think what we expect to see is actually mutual accountability, mutual commitment to accountability, not one way. So we commit that we will be accountable to our community in terms of policy making and everything else about governance that we talk about, and we expect the same from ICANN.
Dean Pemberton said, would that be in the non-binding agreement of, yeah?
Sorry, Masato, for dominating
Yeah,
this.
it's okay.
Look, the question about binding or not binding is a very difficult one for a lot of people to get their head around. I'll give you my opinion. We are talking in this case about global arrangements that deals with internet addresses. There's no point really, in my mind, that we have to go to a court, whether it's in US, Australia, China, Hong Kong, to actually try to deal with a breach of contract, because if we have to go there, then something is already really, really broken. What I see that is necessary is that the affirmation of the commitment is done in a non-binding sense, but in terms of the service level, in terms of a nitty-gritty of things that we need, then both parties, the NRO and ICANN, should enter into a binding arbitration arrangement so that we have a third party, an independent party who can't award damages, by the way, but who can force a party to say, well, you need to do this. So if IANA doesn't provide the numbers, for example, or it's very, very slow, we need to have a mechanism where we can go to an arbitration center, and IANA will be forced to actually do that. Or in the same thing, you know, our accountability is not clear enough. We need a binding direction that we have to do that.
Cool. Yeah,
Izumi.
Izumi from APNIC. I think what Craig has explained and the proposal that comes from as a draft from APNIC makes a lot of sense. So, well, and it's kind of probably boring to just say simply agree. So I'm kind of interested to hear from the others if they feel that, you know, this itself is not, you know, good enough, either in terms of accountability that's been discussed a lot, or in terms of keeping up the service level. Firstly, from the numbers perspective, and then I think there was a point that was raised from Chris that this proposal will be integrated with other IANA functions. And if there's anything that we should consider in balance with possible alternative proposal that might come up and affects the number, the model for the number function, either in terms of accountability or keeping up with the IANA function. If we have extra time, I would be interested in discussing what would be the kind of differences, maybe the perspective from the numbers perspective and from names, possibly the protocol parameters, and what are the things that we may be able to what do you call it, compromise or...
Do we
Yeah.
need to discuss that point at this stage?
No,
or-
no, I think the priority would be first to agree on what we feel is the numbers. But if, we...
We also need to consider.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's my point.
Thank you.
Hi, Oli Jacobson. I want to make a more general point. All of the things that we're talking about that the IANA does right now works very well. The processes themselves, I don't believe, are in great need of being revised, perhaps documented better. Might be one step, but generally speaking, whenever I go to meetings like this and hear the discussions about the future of the IANA, all sorts of people want to get involved in human rights and accountability and transparency and, gee, why is ICANN in California and all sorts of things. I would really urge those of you who are intimately involved in this process to try to stamp out and avoid that as much as possible, because if we end up in a situation where every time the root zone is going to be updated, it needs to go out to community 90-day review to all these constituencies, we're really screwed. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think it's just for the Izumi's talking, I try to, from another angle to answer part of the Izumi is talking about, and also maybe try to add to what is Chris mentioned about, not only talking about the number, you also need to watch what is, the other community like name, whatever the CC or G, because somehow this is eventually the ICG come out is one proposal, it's not spread, Of course, you have a different section, but of course, it definitely is a one proposal. So if that is what you are asking, say, why we need to watch the name, in this proposal, let's take one simple example. I think I came from this number community, as you know. I was APNIC EC for 12 years. I was participating in the APNIC from 1996, till now. And my point is, as we know, at this moment, I think we are really working hard in this number community is try to promote IPv6. And also, don't forget that, because the whole internet community or the internet of infrastructures, the DNS is play a very important role. And DNS definitely is a kind of merge. Well, it's a name and number there, So we definitely is not isolate in the whole internet world or internet community around the world. We definitely need to somehow to working with a name and number, together. I think this is one of the examples why we need to watch. Or of course, we need to have a consensus on our number community is a number one priority, but doesn't mean we don't need to spend some time watch what is a name community is doing. So, because maybe they come out with a very different concept or idea. Who making the trouble? Is me or machine?
Transcript.
I know.
Yeah, personally, you're always my headache.
Because I'm a troublemaker?
I love you, but always my headache.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it's the
sometimes
time
try
to
to check.
talking about the joke? It worked now?
No, I don't think so.
Because I saw that. Time to talk about the joke. See, it worked. It worked. See, great. It's me. I made it. Okay. So I think that. Okay. So now?
No, no.
No? Okay. So who we should complain to? Which ISP provide this?
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So I think I just try to answer, Izumi also, just adding a little bit what is Chris talking in the beginning. I think, first of all, this is one proposal, and also we also need to be careful because somehow the name and number is in the whole community. So it's not, we are not isolated one. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm seeing, oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry, I don't know your name.
So my name is Don Hollander, and I'm from APTLD, and we are very interested in names, and also the region. So my question is, for the APNIC community, are there any regional issues in the Asia-Pacific community that APTLD, the names community, and APNIC, the numbers community, could need to work together on? And so far in this proposal, for discussion, I see nothing. And in APTLD's discussion on Monday afternoon, there were no regional issues. But I just wanted to see if this community felt there were, so that we could work together if there needs to be. Thank you.
Paul or Akinori, do you have any comment for that?
It's a good question, Don, and it's also a number of good points that were made, for instance, by Chris earlier about the potential interactions between names and numbers and protocols, because the ICG in asking for these 3 responses is not really under the illusion that there will be no interaction or inconsistency or issues to reconcile between them. In fact, if you look at the ICG charter, it is very much about maintaining communications from all of the communities about the processes that are underway and the discussions, the conclusions, the plans as they are being developed and emerging. And it is also a very clear expectation that all of these processes happen transparently. So hopefully the relatively small ICG is not the only place where people are watching more broadly outside of their communities. So I would point out that we are in fact charged with reporting back and keeping that information flow running, and that's going to be most of the challenge over the next 3 or 4 months until the plan is actually sort of put together. I take Don's point very much about the Asia-Pacific region, and I think the point of this session is to promote awareness and understanding and to gather views and opinions from within this community. And I think what we can do to support each other is to make sure that the information is flowing out into the community as much as possible, again, to promote awareness outside of this room, but amongst our community across the region. Thanks.
Oh, what's going to Chris? Go ahead.
Thank you. Just two other points. One, I think it's very, very important that whilst you're developing your proposals as the RIRs, you very carefully watch what's going on elsewhere, because just to give you an example, at the IGF in Istanbul a couple of weeks ago, a number of people who belong to ICANN's at-large community were claiming that they believed that the at-large community of ICANN's job in this whole process was to make, amongst other things, the NRO more accountable. I don't believe that it is their job, and I think they were told in no uncertain terms that it isn't their job. But I think you do need to be aware of what's going on outside of this organisation, outside of APNIC, and also outside of the RARs. And my second point is to encourage you to think of the relationship with ICANN not as a customer-supplier relationship, which is how I often hear it described. You know, we are the customer, ICANN is the supplier, we decide how it works. I don't think that's true. It's a partnership, actually. When it came to promoting IPv6, when it came to getting the word out about IPv6 as much as possible, you didn't expect ICANN to act as a supplier, you expected ICANN to act as a partner, you expected ICANN to spend its money, along with you spending your money, to get the word out. So I think it's important to try and remember that this relationship is a partnership, not a customer-supplier relationship. Thanks.
Thank you. I think ICANN is supplier is good comment. Oh, one second. Oh, sorry for interrupting. I'm only seeing people who should know well about these things. But as I said, first goal of this session is getting better understanding from this community. So, is there anybody? Nobody has a question about this? Have you already understood very well? Can I have paper test?
Yeah. Can I comment it? In this room, I really encourage you. You know, might be many of you already know, and some of you might be just a part of the information. You can go to the ICANN website. They have the IANA function stewardship transition microsite, and they have all the description from the IANA function, from the whatever the NTI statement, what it's saying, and go down to how the ICG is formed, and who are those ICG members, and also including the 3 teleconference, 2 face-to-face meeting. All those information is recorded in 6 different languages. And you always can go in to listen or to read, okay? And every ICG meeting in discussion is a real time. It's a broadcast online. You can always sign in and pick up the language you want. 6 languages available. So, including the Chinese, Spanish, English, Arabics, Russian, and what is else? Which one I missed? French, sorry. I should not forget about French. Yeah, right.
No, you should not.
Yeah, and so this is you can go more information, just like you are saying, and also all the documentation is open in the Dropbox. You can download whatever to read what is the process of version 1, version 2, version 3. And more than that, you always remember in that microsite is available for anybody to make your comment to the ICG. ICG will go through your comment into the discussion. So just some information to share with you.
But Koei, I think we don't need to make it so broad. Yeah, this slide shows it's very clear that RIR is a user of IANA function. IANA is address number resource supplier. So if they will not provide number resource as we expect, that's going to be a problem, right? So we are direct stakeholder of this thing. Anyway, go ahead, it's me.
It's me from APNIC. I very much, agree with the statement that Ole made. Let's just, focus on practical things and how this would affect us. So I think all this, a lot of the discussions might be too meta for people to suddenly join in. So let me start with one of the elements of the proposal. One is saying that I think the proposal says that it supports that ICANN continues to be an operator of the IANA. So to start with the position of JPNIC, we support this because we think that the IANA maintains the current service level is very important. And if we think about an alternative organization running the IANA, it might degrade or have the risk of some transfer not being made properly, and might decrease the level of service that the IANA currently provides to the RIRs. So that's why we support this. And I wonder whether the others feel the same, or they don't care, or they support other organizations running the IANA functions.
Okay, so for time being, this is, in plan, this session will be until 12:30, right? Then now it's 12:20, so we only have 10 minutes. So let me focus on this proposal itself from now on. Is that okay? Okay, silent is an agreement. Okay, go ahead, Dean.
I just wanted to make one small point. We've heard quite a lot of people saying that we need to be worried about the thing as a whole. I agree, but there are those of us organisations that have 1 foot in numbers, 1 foot in names, and we certainly are keeping our view across both. But if you're an organisation and you are just concerned about numbers, I think this is definitely where your focus should be. So I'll hand over.
Okay, David.
Hi, I'm David Huberman from Microsoft. My input here to Paul as an executive member of the NRO, is on the SLA. The most important thing that I think the IANA does for us is the administration of IP6.ARPA and INADR.ARPA. And right now they do it exceptionally well in my experience, in my opinion. There's defined processes through interfaces to update /8s, /12s. There are processes that you can that the engineering staffs of the RIRs can use to make updates to the parent zone files. And the IANA conducts this activity exceedingly well and within any reasonable SLA. I hope that the NRO will put that in writing in any agreement.
I have a related question for Craig. Do we have any contents, as we can call SLA, in current agreement? Where's Craig? Oh, here. Do we have such contents in existing agreement?
No, there is no content, but there is proposed content. So in the current framework of the 3 agreement we talked about, there's nothing on the SLA at all, nothing about service levels at all. But they are very much contained in the agreement between US government and ICANN currently, the one that's about to finish. So my idea is that we can actually use a lot of the materials that's currently there, where where ICANN has committed to the US government as a basis for our SLA.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comment? Okay, so okay, go ahead.
Yeah, regarding for this, I think the SLA is you try to make some kind of the much firm relationship between the ICANN and the NRO. Is right? That is I suppose. And actually, don't forget that we already have some kind of relationship between the ICANN and the NRO, not only from those exchange letters. Remember that in the NRO, we have 2 appoint board members into the ICANN board. And it's very important to select your appoint member go into the ICANN board to present your viewpoint. I think we all remember that since 2010, start from, I think it's a Cartagena Cartagena meeting. We continue every ICANN meeting. The ICANN board and the senior staff is meet with the NRO and also ASO member, and this is a very important communication go with in the both sides. So don't just limit our relationship only on the exchange letter, more than that.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
Masato, I suppose what I'd like to kind of refer back to what Chris was saying, that the relationship between ICANN and the RIR community is not just of a customer-supplier, but it's a partnership. Mm-hmm. So in the two agreement, the way I see it is that the AOC is our partnership agreement, the SLA is the supplier, the customer-supplier relationship, because the relationship is kind of both. That's why we're proposing that two things.
Okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So this question for Craig. You're suggesting binding arbitration, and I guess my question is, in this model, what happens if things turn to custard? What are the remedies, and would you expect the RIRs to, what opportunities will they be able to take? And if you could, put your older CCTLD thinking hat, how that might apply to names as well, but focus on numbers here too, of course.
It's a very tricky one to answer politically, but the reason why it's non-binding is for that precise reason. It's non-binding, so it's like having exchange of vows, but you can still have a divorce.
So it's okay to have a divorce?
Yep.
Okay, Paul.
Paul from APNIC. I think we've heard questions about the backup plan and or Plan B. The Plan B is really that the status quo continues as it is. The US government has provided an opportunity here to achieve something which we have asked for in the past, which provides the independence of what we do from that one element that actually attracts a lot of attention. That is the special role of the US government. That attracts a lot of attention. It attracts some negative press, frankly. And so we have this opportunity to achieve what we have asked for over the years. If we don't achieve that opportunity, if we don't take the opportunity, or if we don't achieve it to the stated expectations, then the backup plan is simply that the USG will go ahead and renew the contract. We expect largely the same as it has been before, but the future is unknown. I don't think it would be possible for the USG to say, well, you have another 12 months or you have another 24 months to achieve this. I think we're sort of simply back to the status quo, because the fact is that that in the next term of the IANA contract, if it's renewed, there will be US elections, a change or a renewal of the US administration, and really no one's going to make promises that are going to be able to endure through that kind of change in the US. So backup plan is simply that we continue the way we have been continuing for years with reasonable success and satisfaction.
Yeah.
But the opportunity is there. I'd like to suggest one thing for the session, which is, could we see some indication of the level of comfort with this proposal and support?
That's what I'm trying to do from
okay.
next.
Thanks, Masato. I'll leave it to you. Thanks.
It's okay. Then, so give me five minutes more. Then I want to make sure these items in current draft proposal is comfortable for everybody or not. I want to make sure that point, okay? Then, as Paul already mentioned about first principle, which is USG to terminate the IANA contract. But I think we can call it as an assumption, not principle. right? I think we don't need to discuss about this first principle. Then let's go to second one, technical stability and continuity. And also, I don't think we will have any complaint about that point, but I want to make sure. Do you have any comment about second principle, which is technical stability and continuity? Okay, Dean, come on.
Dean Pemberton, Internet NZ. Paul's asked for some measure of the room about how people feel about this draft proposal, and I think that's very important. I mean, it's come from the Secretariat. They've come to us for consultation. They need to know how we feel about that, and so Internet NZ, in its current form, thinks that this is a great starting point in the numbers space. It doesn't talk about the names, and that's good. So in the numbers space, Internet NZ supports this as a good starting point and thinks that there needs to be a level of detail fleshed out around this. There may be some points in that we might want some more clarification on, but as a starting point, we think this is great. So thank you very much.
I think we need to make sure this proposal is from number perspective. I don't see any number, word of number in this proposal.
It's because the SLA is really just going to be talking about numbers, so we haven't actually got the details in there. But everything, all the service levels that will be referred to will refer to numbers. And I suppose the other point is that the agreement is between NRO on behalf of all the 5 RIRs and ICANN. So by logic, we can't bind the numbers community because jurisdiction, if you like, is in the numbers.
Okay. So can I assume second principle is accepted in this community? Is it okay? Okay, so let's go to transition plan for this second principle. There are 2 items. First one is the ICANN to continue as operator of IANA until further notice. And second one is our NRO to enter into our SLA with ICANN before June 30th in next year. Do you have any comments for these 2 transition plans? Is it okay? Or are you sleeping? No, nobody's sleeping in this room. It's very good. Okay, so let me assume this transition plan is accepted. And also next is our third principle, which says transparency, consistency, and completeness in all arrangements. It's a little bit ambiguous a little bit. But do you have any comments or views for this principle? Is it okay? Okay, so how about transition plan for third principle, which says NRO to review current agreements with ICANN before the end of December of this year, and also NRO to enter into an AOC with ICANN before the end of June in next year. So I think we already identified what's the difference between SLA and AOC, right? So we should have both here. Okay. Okay. Also, I think one point, in addition to this proposal, I think, in my understanding, another point was raised, which is even though this proposal is from number perspective, we also need to consider how to cooperate other area, like especially names, because we have name name organization in this region. So that's the open point. Okay, is it okay? Oh, I have one more question. Is there any additional principle which we need to consider? Is it okay? It covers everything? Okay, so let me, so Maimura-san.
Thank you very much, Masato, for the really crisp moderation of this session. And I think I'm really happy to have this discussion. And as Masato did in the last part of the moderation, some points are clarified as the current thought of our community. I'd like to encourage you. I'm now concluding this session, but I'd like to encourage you to continue the discussion throughout this week and further on the mailing list. If you maybe you have a lot of unclear point on this issue of the IANA stewardship transition, because it is really complicated with a lot of documents and implication with the other organization, blah blah blah. Then please never hesitate to come up to the Paul and Craig, myself, Masato, some other people who you think have the knowledge on this issue, and myself, and I believe that any staff from the APNIC Secretariat is quite willing to answer your question. And this is here today at the APNIC region of this discussion. As you know, the request for proposal was just published, and we are the very first RIR to have the opportunity to meet and discuss this issue. And we will have at least until December the time of the discussion, where the other RIL have their own discussion to proceed some thoughts on their own. Then APNIC need to keep track of that. APNIC community need to keep track of that to reflect such achievement from the other RIR to our own consideration. So we will go on the discussion on the mailing list for the develop this proposal further, and adding some more details to complete the APNIC's own final proposal to submit to the NRO. Then the other thing is, yes, Chris Despain said that it is really important to have an eye for the other community, like names and parameters, protocol parameters. Some of you might know that IETF has started their own business, their own process with their quite normalized, standardized process to begin with above, establishing the working group to develop the internet draft and make it as the RSC. So they're already on the way to develop their proposals. Then that is worth reading, any of you, for the reference. And Masato is right. This is our job as the APNIC community to have our own say to this issue. Then please do participate in this discussion throughout this week and continue on the online. Masato, you have some comment?
Yeah. I think this draft proposal will be discussed in other RIRs also in this autumn, right?
Yes.
The next one is our RA meeting in October.
In October.
Does somebody will attend? Will somebody attend to our meeting?
Some of them
I also
yes.
will.
Yes.
So So then next one is a LACNIC one. Right? Oh,
Paul from APNIC again. Certainly some APNIC staff will attend the AARON meeting. We haven't discussed that APNIC would take this proposal and formally present it. I assume that we are being watched by at least some folks in the other RAR communities, and they're taking note of that. But whether or not this proposal fits into the way that the other RARs will deal with this issue it's a question for them. I mean, if invited, I think any of us would certainly be prepared to stand up and talk to this proposal at the meeting, but there hasn't been a discussion or a decision about that yet. Thanks.
Thank you. Good. All right. Then that's already the time to conclude. Thank you very much, everyone, for the join the discussion, and please give the big hand for the moderator, Masato Yamanishi, and all of you. Thank you.